Good to see you, Dana.
Paul, good to see you. How's life?
It's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're good.
Good. Good. We just had a fire in our view shed on Payne Road. It was very exciting.
Ooh.
They got it out. We got the pulse point message, and the ODF were the ones that went to it. They had it
All
out.
right.
10 minutes. Boom.
Yeah, District 5 was there pretty quick too with ODF.
Yeah. Where's ODF stationed to get there? Are they hanging out at District 5?
No, they have a guard station that's over on Mistletoe Road in Ashland.
Okay. Man, they were there fast. I think they were there. District 5 was on it too, but I think ODF was because we listened on the radio, you know.
Yeah. They may have been out just driving around and happened
Yeah.
to the right spot.
Yeah, no, it was the kind of excitement I like.
I just threw a link in there, and that is to the 2016 CERT strategic plan. One of the things we'll be talking about. So if you maybe pop that open and keep it off to the side until we start talking about it, it might be easier than me sharing my screen and not being able to see everybody. But we'll wait a couple more minutes for folks to join since it's not quite 6 yet.
That was me. I was barking.
As long as there's no biting.
If she keeps barking, I'll mute. But
But people are still blinking in, so maybe another minute or two. I know it's kind of like right after work time, people trying to get home and get settled, dinner, all that.
People still go to work?
Less and less, probably. Work from home.
I have a quick question.
Yeah, go Kat.
I've been volunteering with the vaccination clinic in Medford. Can that count toward my CERT hours or not? Because it's not an official assignment.
I'm not familiar with what qualified and didn't previously. I would just guess off the top of my head, it would probably have to be a CERT-oriented mission of some sort, though that's certainly admirable. And thank you for doing that.
Okay, no worries. I just wanted to, they are also looking for more volunteers. So if there's anyone that's looking for some volunteer work, they do need people to volunteer at the monoclonal antibody clinic and a couple of other positions that they'd like to get filled. You have to go to the Asante website to sign up and go through all their clearance procedures.
Certainly worthwhile. Thank you for throwing that out there. We'll give it about one more minute and see if folks, I'm sure we'll have a couple stragglers as we start, but.
Can we talk first about the recruitment? And I'm also wondering, I don't remember exactly what Terry's title was, but it looks like it's calling the position a liaison. And what is that exactly? Does that mean liaison between what and what?
Sure, we can talk about that.
Okay.
That's, I was just calling that in a more like a common terminology kind of way to describe what the person will be. The official title of the position is not a liaison, it's a fire and life safety specialist, which is really here nor there for CERT or really anything else. Fire and life safety is just one of those things in the fire industry, along with community risk reduction, which is probably going to be a term that you'll hear more in the future as fire departments go toward having what used to be called fire prevention bureaus or a fire prevention division to be all encompassing in managing community risk. So CERT certainly fits underneath that big umbrella of managing community risk and being able to prepare residents and others to respond to disasters, big or small. That certainly reduces our community risk. Do anything that prepares or prevents disasters and accidents, emergencies from happening. So I wouldn't get too hung up on what the title of it is. The previous position was Emergency Preparedness Coordinator. Was the last iteration. I think previously it had actually been the CERT coordinator. But the last job title was Emergency Preparedness Coordinator.
Okay.
So I can give you an update. We'll kick it off here. Good evening, everybody. So good to see your faces. Thank you for taking the time to tune in tonight. I know it's always a challenge with schedules to be part of this, but it's much appreciated and you are here. I'm sorry that I look so dark. I have my light on in my office, but for whatever reason, it's not shining on my face. I don't mean to be in the shadows. So what I'm hoping to cover tonight is, and basically kind of an update on what's happening. And so we'll walk through some of that first, and then dive a little bit deeper into what changes might we take opportunities might we take advantage of to make changes during this transition time. One of those items is looking at the strategic plan, which again, I posted in the chat as a link. You can click on that link and have that document open off to the side if you want. When we get there, it might be helpful to have that to look at. Some of you may have participated in that planning process and know it inside and out. Others may, like me, be pretty new to it. I'm familiar with the fire department's overall strategic plan, but the CERT strategic plan is is kind of a new one for me personally. So we can talk about strategic planning, how that can help set a vision for the future. We can talk about what kind of trainings and what kind of activations CERT wants to be involved with in the future. Just because we did something in the past doesn't mean we have to do it moving forward. If everybody loved it, great, well, let's keep doing it. But if people weren't excited about something, then we should have a discussion about whether that's a valid pursuit in the future as part of the CERT program, which I would just throw out that I think we could be a little more focused in training and preparation to be really good at the things that CERT has, many of the things that CERT has done in the past, but maybe there are some that we want to maybe leave by the wayside and provide opportunities for new things as our situation changes in our society, in our country, in our community, and be able to respond to the things that are important for the fire department and important to CERT members as well. So I'll just dive into the updates again. Thanks for the question, Chelsea. So where the position is right now, crafting a new position decision. This is Ashlyn. And maybe just a reminder to mute yourself if you aren't talking. That'll help with any background noise, dogs barking, whatnot. Thank you. So the position is being basically invented. This isn't a position that has existed at Ashland Fire and Rescue in the past. It's a position that is not uncommon in the fire service across the country, but we have not had that. I know of one other position like that in the Valley at Fire District 3. Medford, I don't know if Medford has something similar, but industry-wide, it would be something that is a pretty recommended practice, best practice to have a fire and life safety specialist. So the position, again, and I think we've said this in the past, but either for folks who weren't at the past meetings, and it's just a reminder, the fire and life safety specialist will be half-time devoted to CERT. And so in that capacity, there will be a liaison. I mean, you can still call him a coordinator if you want to, but I think our intent is not that the person is going to lead the charge 100% and say CERT is going to do this, this, and this, and do as much as the past coordinator position was doing to set the agenda for CERT. But our hopes is that CERT members will take a little more active role in the leadership of CERT, and we can talk about what that leadership might look like, and be more active in shaping the future of the program, both in what kind of preparations or what kind of trainings you're engaged in, what kind of activations that you're most interested in. And, certainly from the fire department side, we have our interests in what we want CERT to be doing, but we want it to be a team environment where we work together. And so we don't want to say, CERT is going to do this, and CERT members are going, yeah, we're not going to do that. That's not productive on either side. So a little more collaboration in the mission of CERT moving forward. So the position will be that person who is the primary contact, can arrange the basic trainings, arrange advanced trainings on behalf of CERT. So we'll certainly be doing that work and getting those things arranged, maintaining the program records, all the things, some of the things you're used to seeing the CERT coordinator having done in the past. A lot of that is not going to change. They're still going to be here for you, being able to get resources, make them available for CERT, such as stocking the CERT bases, which is something that Terry was really active in recently in getting medical supplies. I know some of you may have come into the station to help transfer those supplies out to bases. Thank you for that. So that it will continue. We still have some grant money through the Department of Homeland Security grant, which did pay for some of those medical supplies, but can also go to CERT basic PPE, vests, helmets, things like that, as needed. We just extended that agreement and amended it, not being able to spend some of the in-person training money that was earmarked for that grant. So there's, I think it was $14,000 left in that grant to put towards CERT needs. So the position, again, will be half time devoted to CERT. They will spend the rest of their time doing a combination of fire inspections and our weed abatement program. So what Chief Sartain did was basically to take the halftime position for CERT and an almost halftime position for weed abatement and put them together into one full-time job. So we can attract somebody that we hope will stay here a long time, provide a good salary for them rather than having two halftime positions. I think it's it's a lot better offering to have somebody get a full-time job with benefits here who would want to stay here for a while. They will be doing fire safety inspections for businesses and other higher risk buildings and occupancies around town as part of their job. I will be the supervisor for that position. So I will still have a connection to CERT through that person, helping to set their work plan and their work agenda and priorities, making sure that they're maintaining their relationship with CERT and keeping the program alive and well. Timing wise for that position, we would like to hopefully get our position description done within the next month, get an advertisement out for the position and be able to hire it by the end of the year. So hopefully by January, somebody will be in the position. Oh, and an important part of it, the position will actually have to be a firefighter, a trained firefighter. And so I think that's a big help on the CERT side, because then that's somebody that can teach the medical and fire portions of the CERT basic training, perhaps can engage in some of the more advanced trainings with some background in fire and emergency response. And then they'll also be an extra body that can help us respond when we get down to next to nobody left in the fire stations, which is not all that uncommon, unfortunately. So that helps out on the emergency response side as well. But I think it also helps build a bridge between the fire operations side and CERT and emergency preparedness, where we haven't really had that bridge in the past. We will offer the job internally if anybody wants to take it who's already a firefighter here. If they want to interview, if we don't get anybody, then we'll put it out externally. I think it would be great if we did have somebody internally, if they were the right person. I will say not every firefighter here is the right person to take on that job, but there are some who I think would be very good. Whether or not they'll apply, I have no idea who will apply at this point, but if it were somebody internal, that would be great because they would already have that working relationship with our fire operations folks, and they could bring that to bear with the CERT program, which I think is something that maybe folks had noticed was missing. We had a really hard time getting firefighters to help with the basic training and any advanced training. And I think we can help remedy that through this position. Any questions on the position before we move on? Yeah, Steve.
Yeah, I had a question. I just saw an article in I think it was in the Tidings today or yesterday about, I guess the city council is, looking at the budget again and trying to cut things. It said they were definitely going to be hitting the fire department, the police department. Is there any expected impact on fire and rescue?
We haven't heard that yet. it's hard to say when things get put on, what gets put on the chopping block. I think we make it a lot more attractive position to keep by making it full-time. So it's a lot easier to get rid of a half-time person than a full-time person. And by making it somebody who can respond to emergencies at the same time as doing the prevention and preparedness kind of work. I think they're going to be a lot more reticent to get rid of somebody who helps our staffing level, which is one of the biggest issues right now in the whole department is being understaffed. So I think that will help our odds significantly. And also to say that in the past, the fire department has borne many of the budget cuts to the general fund. And I would hope at least the council or budget committee members would recognize that and not be recommending further cuts. If you tune in on October, I think 4th, there's a study session with city council talking about the fire department budget and operations. Chief Sartain is going to present a whole overview of all that we do and all of our needs moving forward. I'll give a little piece on wildfire at the end. Don't be worried if you don't hear CERT mentioned. It's not really something that the council asked to hear about, which isn't a bad thing. I think with as popular as CERT is in Ashland, it would be a pretty risky choice, I will say, for councilors to advocate for cutting CERT funding. And looking forward to our future of more climate change, more fires, more rainstorms, perhaps more flooding. I think CERT just looks better and better unfortunately in a worse looking future. Emergency response is going to be looking a lot more important to prioritize. So Steve, to answer your question, I'm hoping with my fingers crossed that we don't see any cuts. We haven't heard that that's coming.
Chris?
Follow-ups about the position?
Yes. From the description you just made, it sounds as if the move will be more to having CERT pretty well self-governed. That the person in this new position will be in a liaison capacity, but as you know, we learned from Almeida and other situations when it's all hands on deck fire response, and this person's called up to deploy with the fire department because they need to fill the line. That kind of leaves CERT leaderless from the fire department's standpoint, which would put the emphasis on our being able to self-activate, self-deploy, set up our own, response plan and coordinate with the fire department, certainly, but we would be essentially independent in a tactical manner.
I wouldn't go that far. Independent in a tactical manner is dangerous and unaccountable. We in ICS we do not do that because that's what gets. So there will always be a connection in the incident response framework to CERT. That might be me as a higher level, not an incident commander, but like a group or division supervisor. That could be, or maybe a liaison position that would be responsible for CERT activation, depending on what kind of emergency it is. Whether or not we're pulling that person into a formal response role or not, hard to say. Probably in a flooding scenario, I'm just going to say would not have to be on the ground and could be more hands-on with CERT. But in a wildfire scenario, they would probably need to be hands-on on emergency response, being on an engine perhaps. And that would kind of default to me or somebody else in the incident, the command and general staff team, to be that link to CERT.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not suggesting that CERT would be kind of a loose cannon without any leadership or coordination with the department. But if the coordinator, the person filling the coordinator position is otherwise deployed, that changes our command reporting structure. And, we probably need to be thinking through that process. What our chain of command will be under those circumstances, how we plug into ICS, and, from whom do we take our marching orders? If the person that we normally would turn to is on the line and not able to respond.
I do understand what you're saying. Yeah. So the way I see the current CERT hierarchy, I think is we're like, I would say close to 90% of the way there. And Terry had done a great job of setting it up, and with Paul and Dan, the primary deputies, who, even when Terry was out of town, we still had contacts. We still felt like we could initiate a CERT response. That all seemed very well done, and people were trained and knew what to do. I don't see that changing at all. And in fact, we can talk about that leadership hierarchy and how we might bolster that so that there are more positions who can jump into that primary contact, call it a deputy, whatever role, to be the person who can coordinate the call out, get people organized and ready to report for duty safely, and in a spot where they're safe to stage and then be activated through the incident command. So I don't see any loss in that in particular. But yeah, I think you're right in that we will need to talk about what that structure looks like, and then perhaps engage some more training and recruitment of folks who are ready to step into that role, especially should that the CERT coordinator liaison be subsumed into the emergency response itself.
Thank you.
So Chris, I have a question. This is Victoria. I was just wondering, once you've gone through the applicants and you've picked out a couple, will CERT have any involvement in giving you input about the applicants that you've chosen?
Yeah, we haven't even got that far yet, but I don't see why not. I'm happy to advocate for having a CERT person or two maybe be on the interview panel, or in some way helping us sort through applications as they come in. I don't see why we wouldn't do that, because you have as much invested in who is in that job as any of the rest of us. So I would see that as a big benefit.
Great.
I got my notebook here, so I'm gonna write some of this stuff down just to make sure I don't lose it. And you will, related to that, you will see probably some changes in our own fire department staffing and hierarchy. Ralph is proposing, and this will be part of his council presentation on the 4th, to do some rejiggering of our hierarchy. So whereas I'm a division chief now, I might move up to be a deputy chief of community risk reduction. Told you you'd hear that again. So we would have a community risk reduction division, which would include all of our wildfire preparation work that I'm currently overseeing, and CERT, and the fire and life safety specialist, and a deputy fire marshal. And for now, that's it. We'll see. One possibility, and something that we have kind of in hushed voices talked about, is a part-time emergency manager. The emergency management duties have always been just stuffed into the fire chief's job, which then kind of get redistributed throughout the fire department in various ways. It would be great if we had, I don't think Ashland should have a full-time emergency manager. There's not enough work here in our small town just to do that. But if we had even a quarter or part-time person that could just pull together a lot of the strategic planning that's needed for emergency management, keep all our ducks in a row, and help us really pursue some of the items that were identified in the evacuation time estimate study. I think there's a lot of community coordination that was a piece of that we just don't have anybody to work on right now, coordinating between the school district, SOU, the city, YMCA, some of the major players in town who typically have a lot of people in buildings at one time and have a lot of capacity to do outreach and education. I would love to see there be somebody that can do that. So that's mentioned in the presentation also that Ralph's giving. So that would kind of all fit in that same division. The other division, which we are currently hiring, we had 18 applicants for our Deputy Chief of Operations, which is a position that we had temporarily filled with one of our battalion chiefs. You saw him on one of the meetings, Steve Boyer-Smith. So we are narrowing that field down to 10 candidates to interview. They'll be doing their interview process starting next week. And then Ralph and I will interview the finalists the week after that. And we hope to have somebody in that job soon. Kind of, if they're local, they could probably get there pretty quick. We have applicants from all over the country, interestingly, all the way from Maine, even Texas, Maine. Yeah, it was interesting to see that there was so much interest in that position, and quite a handful of local folks as well. So that will change a little bit of how business is done here. Functionally, the public probably won't see anything different. People have some different titles, and we will do more in the community risk reduction arena, not just focused on wildfire, but looking at other hazards as well as risks, which can be everything from like falls. And we did start a fall prevention program some years ago that we just have kind of lost track of. But things like that kind of get put in that big community risk reduction umbrella. So that's all I know about the position. And I will certainly, I've got a note here now as CERT participating in that process for hiring the fire and life safety specialist. And with that, maybe we could move on to the broader topic, and I think this is where that the leadership hierarchy discussion fits in, is the overall vision for CERT moving forward. Transition is a great time to step back and take a look at what we're doing, and if those are the things that we want to be doing, and are we meeting the needs of the citizens of Ashland who are supporting the CERT program, and of course the fire department in general. Are we meeting the needs of the future in terms of what the threats are out there for our community? And we're getting the training to be able to respond to those things. I posted in the strategic plan. Maybe many of you have participated in strategic planning processes. Did anybody actually participate in the CERT strategic plan in 2016? Paul is shrugging his shoulders. Sort of, kind of, maybe. Nobody's jumping up and down saying, "Oh yeah, I was, a big part of that." Which, that ultimately you would love for people to be able to say that, because it's really a member-driven organization. So your voices should be the loudest in that kind of process. If you pop open that strategic plan, one of the things that a leadership group like this one might do over the next few months is to go through this and say, well, are these objectives or goals, objectives valid? Have we accomplished some of them? Did we check that box? Can we say, yep, we did that, let's move on? Or are we going to say, you know what, that was wishful thinking, but didn't achieve that, and probably won't ever get around to doing that. So let's take that one off the table and bring in some things that are achievable. Objectives are often represented by SMART, which is strategic and manageable, or no, strategic, measurable, achievable, and realistic, and time bound or time sensitive. I've heard that in too many planning trainings. Some they talk about in ICS planning training. So, kind of looking at that with an eye towards these being SMART goals and objectives. This is a good time. The plan itself, if you're looking at it, does list the time horizon 2016 to 2021. So here we are in 2021. This thing has been in place for 5 years. So it is time-wise the perfect time to be staring at it and saying, how valid is this? And if we find things that we don't like and that would open up space for new objectives, new goals, then we can say, okay, let's start another strategic planning process. It'll be nice to do this when the position is actually hired, but we can certainly start the process even before that has happened. At least the analysis of the current plan and trying to figure out what's good and what's not good, and what needs to be revamped. And so ultimately we would engage in a process that CERT membership would do some one I've participated in, and many of you maybe have done, is called the sticky dot. The easy way to call it is the sticky dot process, where you get little sticky dots that are different colors. You create your own membership generated objectives. We can submit some department objectives and goals, and then you would, it's actually formally called nominative valuation. So you nominate these objectives and then you give them values and set priorities. We did that for our department strategic plan. I've done it through Rotary and other places. Pretty common, it's pretty functional. Whether or not we'll actually be able to be in person and put little sticky dots on pieces of paper, I don't know yet. We'll see what happens this fall, moving into the winter with COVID. But there are other ways that we could do it via surveys sent out and have people fill out surveys and give value, or first nominating which of the objectives you'd like to keep and which ones you don't want to keep, and nominating new objectives and then giving them priority rankings. We could conceivably do that digitally. Not ideal and not as much fun, but we could muddle through it if we had to.
Chris?
Yes.
Chris? Looking at this, it looks like these are the objectives for the CERT coordinator for Terry, not necessarily for CERT. Not for the CERT organization itself, but for the coordinator.
Right. Well, there you go. Well, there's one suggestion already. So we can change the wording of objectives to be more global to the CERT membership and applicable to the liaison specialist, whatever it's hard to call them the fire and life safety specialist is too long of a title. So I'm just gonna say the liaison. So to the liaison position, so that they have a job, they know certain jobs that they need to do to implement the goals. But I think that's a perfectly valid and great observation, is they aren't goals that are engaging to the membership, which I think is unfortunate.
Well, and is that the purpose of this? So would there be two? And I don't know how Terry was rated, if she was rated on this, but some of these are absolutely not even measurable.
I hear you. I don't see there as being two strategic plans,
Okay.
One for staff and one for the membership. It is one and the same. So, maybe there's reason number one to do this is to make it a truly collaborative, cohesive document that speaks to members, but also helps give staff direction and program leadership direction too. Part of this, if it can come from the membership, then you feel like you have buy-in on these goals. And just based on the reaction, asking if anybody was participating in it, and or if anybody has ever even seen this document, that I should at least see some hands saying, "Oh yeah, I'm familiar with that. That rings a bell." But if nobody knows what CERT strategic plan was out of CERT leadership, that is kind of a big swing and a miss in my book. So we can strive to correct that.
I think more of us are probably familiar with the CERT member handbook, and
Yeah.
participated in that. And, maybe are probably more familiar with like the set of missions that we had listed and which of those we want to prioritize and continue. But I mean, those could fit into the strategic plan, I would think, because the strategic plan there really just more talks about training and communication with that, doesn't really talk specifically about missions at all. So I think that would be more of interest to most of the membership, I would think.
And I would see that we could make the strategic plan more mission oriented, and then that would lead into training goals and objectives.
Yeah, right.
Well, see, you guys have the ideas already of how to go about this and how to make it more pertinent to your role in CERT. Barb, jump in.
It seems like maybe it would be a good idea to try and get a new strategic plan that could be given to the people that are going to apply for the position that's going to be managing us, so that as part of their finding out about, there'll be the job description and all of that you guys put together, but they might be interested to see what other, sort of stuff there is. And that, if we could get it done before someone is hired is what I'm saying, that might be something they would be able to look at.
Sure. I don't disagree at all. I think we would be really challenged to meet that timeline. I hate to rush a strategic planning process and not get it right.
Strategic plans take a long time to evolve and get consensus, but perhaps an interim solution might be to make sure that we share the handbook that Steve refers to with the candidates, because that does spell out in great detail, mission goals and structure and, a lot of the thinking that goes on behind why we do what we do, not just how we do what we do. That might be a useful tool.
You're right, for sure. And I've looked through the handbook. That is more at the level of everyday kind of work that the liaison person will be engaging, though they certainly need to have their eye on the strategic side of it as well. And I'll take more responsibility for the strategic part of it as the supervisor for that position, and of the the overarching umbrella again of community risk reduction. That would be kind of more my job to make sure that is happening, not necessarily on a day-to-day basis, but on a month-to-month, year-to-year kind of basis. Hey, are we aligning ourselves to achieve these goals? Are we dedicating the budget? Are we finding funds? Are we doing the right training? All that kind of stuff. So I do appreciate that strategic planning processes are, I think they're fun and interesting. They can get a little messy from time to time. But I think if we come at it with the best interest of the program and the community in mind, I think we'll be able to do some really good work. Whether or not I or anyone else has the capacity to actually shepherd this thing through is one important question. So I will throw it out to at least this group is, do any of you have experience in managing strategic planning, and or maybe know somebody else in CERT who does, who might want to help make this thing go?
I'd like to ask a question first. would the premise be that we create or update a strategic plan as a standalone organization, as an adjunct to AFR? Or would it be a document or a planning process that's integral to AFR's mission? You know, because that kind of establishes our relationship with the department. Are we a standalone group that supports you on demand, or are we an integral part of AFR's service to the community, and then we backfill a lot of gaps that AFR can't do because of whatever reason? Because the answer to that question determines how we approach the strategic planning process. Are we doing it, you know, in a vacuum, or are we doing it as part of the department's mission?
Yes, Scott, what I'm hearing you say is, do we do the strategic plan based on what's needed or based on what we want to do as a CERT organization?
Yes, and to take it one step further, what's needed from the department's standpoint. I mean, are we an auxiliary to AFR, or are we a standalone community organization that AFR just happens to have jurisdiction over? Because that informs the direction of the strategic plan. And, you know, and kind of gives us a sense of purpose and you know, where we're going to take all that effort.
I appreciate that observation, Scott. That's really good. I would like to think we would be more toward the former of what you described, which is CERT is an adjunct of the fire department. You know, we are both serving the goals of the community and providing safety, public safety, disaster preparedness being a component of that, and certainly the response side as well, you know, helping us develop capacity. I think in my experience with CERT, and what I at least sense that CERT is supposed to be doing, is serving in that role, not necessarily being this separate entity. And there's a lot of risk in being that separate entity and not being integrated into training, and being, one of them is just feeling like that you have stuff to do. And I know that's been a frustration with CERT throughout CERT's history, is, yeah, you do all this training and that's fun and useful. And, you know, and it might help you from time to time in some aspect of your life. But if you don't ever get activated to do something to help the community, you feel kind of useless. And like, well, why are we spending all our time doing all this when the fire department doesn't call on us to help? So I feel strongly that we should be more integrated, which would give you more opportunities, I think, to be part of operations at the fire department level, more responses. You know, not every response is going to be like, you know, the response of your dream, activation of your dreams, where you're doing things that are saving people's lives. And, you know, and yes, it can come to that. We all know there's certain scenarios where certain volunteers are going to be incredibly important in a kind of life-saving kind of mission way. Like evacuating people that happened during the Siskiyou fire back in 2009. But at the same time, just being able to be activated for missions of importance to the community. I was happy to see folks show up for our evacuation canvassing. We rolled out the new evacuation plan. I would like to see more of that kind of thing. I know that's not everybody's cup of tea, but at the same time, being able to do that. Another thing we did was give away the air purifiers. That was a CERT activation mission last summer. We gave away 600 air purifiers to vulnerable people in town. I think that was a huge service. And, you know, part of it, I believe this for our firefighters as well as our CERT volunteers, is the public needs to see us out there doing things. Yeah, you know, the ambulance is out there. Oftentimes you see them parked and they're hauling somebody away. Yeah, that's going to happen. But they also need to see firefighters out there doing fire prevention inspections, and, you know, in schools, and, you know, even.
So Chris, can I interrupt? Because I think we're getting off the topic of the strategic plan.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Anna.
Sorry. So it sounds like it's a two-pronged approach, because we need to know what AFR wants for CERT, from CERT, and we need to know what we want from CERT. The last meeting, which I believe that you missed, we spent a good deal of time going through and listing and talking about the things that we wanted to do as CERT members. And I don't know if you got those notes or not, but there may be quite a bit of information there for you. And my takeaway from that meeting was basically boiled down to train us and use us.
Sounds,
Don't train us in all kinds of stuff that's never going to be used.
that's important. Thank you. Yes, Steve.
I had a question about, I was thinking, well, let me look and see what AFR's strategic plan looks like. I went and looked on the website, but I didn't really see it. I saw some old annual reports and things and under forms and documents, but it might be useful if we saw the strategic plan, because obviously it'd be nice for ours to kind of mirror that in terms of some of the language and goals and such. So it might be easier for us to shoehorn it in if we saw what yours looked like.
Yes, there is one. I will say it's probably out of date because probably the last time we updated it was when John Carnes was the chief. As much as it does exist as current, I already wrote in my notes, strategic plan tiering to the AFNR strategic plan. So I'll bring it up with Chief Sartain about our department plan. I know he's just trying to keep everything together right now, and so thinking of strategic planning as an afterthought at the moment, which doesn't mean we shouldn't be doing it in the near future. Hopefully we get to that where we're not in crisis mode as much with staffing and trying to keep everything afloat. But
so Chris, how can we help you move forward with this? It seems like there's a lot of there are things floating out there, and how can we help? What do you need from us?
Let's hold that question. I think Barb has something that may be related.
Yeah, because you said that if anybody feels qualified to lead a strategic plan structured organization or knows somebody, I don't feel qualified to do that, but I would feel comfortable asking Elizabeth Zinser. I know she's really busy. Well, I know she's really busy with a lot of other things herself. I know her from Ollie, and she's on the council and all this, but I could ask her, and assuming that she's too busy, but she would know people, like if she could refer us to people that she would trust to have the skill to do that, then that would be I would take that as a very excellent reference. If Elizabeth Zinser recommended somebody that would be interested in doing this with us, I would take that as a very strong recommendation. So, I'd be happy to ask her, and anybody else, any of the other people in CERT can ask anybody that they think would be, somebody that could do that if we don't have anybody internally that has time. I think there's people in CERT that have the ability, but I don't know if they have time. And same with Elizabeth. But if we found somebody to sort of spearhead it, then that person would even be familiar with like this part of it, where we're not even actually getting going yet, but try and move things forward. What do we need to move things forward? Like what Dana said. So maybe if we got someone who was willing to put in some time to help us, that person could steer the ship in that kind of way.
Yeah, I hear you. And I think, what we need to set in place, and to get to your question, Dana, about what can we do now? So I think we can start setting the stage for the strategic planning process. Whether or not the fire department will go through with an update to our own strategic plan, I don't think we have to wait for that. So one of the things is, and Paul and Dan and I have talked about this, is let's establish a formal CERT leadership group. Call it what you want, a leadership committee, the oversight board, I don't know. The name doesn't even really matter to me. If you all want to choose something that works for you, great. There's been kind of a loose assemblage, as I understand, of folks who tune into these meetings and, care enough to be here. But it's not been a formal hierarchy of leadership other than Paul and Dan being the the kind of more the operations activation side, lieutenants or whatever your formal position titles are, deputies, perhaps that was it. But
Well, we do have 3 levels of members that they have to have certain, some time put in and certain training put in and certain
Right.
skill sets. But
that's
beyond
really
that,
that's more response oriented. So I'm talking about leadership and help setting the direction for CERT, giving input, making sure once we have this position hired that giving input back to that person, giving that person a sounding board to help make sure we're implementing this strategic vision and getting the right things if there's going to be some kind of handbook update, if we're modifying the vision for activations and missions, that all that feedback is getting funneled correctly. And not to say that the leadership people can't also be stepping up on the activation side. I think that could be some of the same people. And I think both Paul and Dan have expressed interest in having more than just 2 people, with a big yes from Paul. More than 2 people in that role as the primary contacts for handling a CERT activation, and so that can kind of be developing in the background. But I think if we're going to do this strategic planning process, having it could exist for the purpose of strategic planning, though I would like it to last longer than that and become more of a permanent function of CERT. But to have a cadre of folks who are, in all effects, like a board, as it would function for like a nonprofit or something like that for CERT, who help establish that governance along with in partnership with the fire department, of course. So maintaining that that connection. But it would be nice if there was this formal group. So Dana, getting back finally to the questions to say, how do we go about it? How will people initiate and say, yeah, I'd love to be part of that? How big should it be? We know we could.
I have a question first, Chris. Where I don't live, and Scott and I don't live in Ashland. We're outside of District 5. We're Talent.
Yeah.
And so I'm not, is that still are we still included? I mean, I feel like sometimes we're just sort of sneaking in into Ashland CERT.
I think you're more than welcome. We haven't got to the point of discussing the relationship with District 5 and Talent CERT yet. That was something I was like not involved in at all. So I figure out what that is with your help. And then especially when we have somebody hired, to figure out if that's going to continue or not through District 5, which I kind of hope it does, but I know at times a lot of work to keep that going. But yeah, so again, to pose the question, how do we form a leadership team? And I'm happy to help try to get a sketch outline of what that group does. How big do you want it to be? Yeah, how do we nominate people and get them on board?
Yeah. If I make a couple of comments. I think that, as you mentioned, we need, we're a little thin on the activation folks. So we need, a couple more people, I think, to be on call and available to activate CERT. We have a procedure for that. And we just need a couple of volunteers. I think the advisory board vision documents act is great, and also with a CERT coordinator that has 20 hours, a person who has 20 hours for CERT, they're going to need help. It's a bigger program that could be run in 20 hours a week. So, you know, we need a group to help. I think, and it's, Chris, I guess this is a question. It's like, do you see it that way, that we need a group of a small group to help keep things going, whether it's to help the CERT coordinator do what they do, whether it's the communications or newsletters or planning trainings and so forth. Does that make sense?
That totally makes sense. And I think that's part of integrating CERT in the operations of both CERT and the fire department. I want to see more CERT people here, and the fire, you know, people feel safe to do that. You know, I'd like seeing your faces around. I think we should do more of that. And to the extent that a leadership group could help provide that direction, maybe those are some of the people who are showing up here more, and some of that more hands-on coordination. That would be awesome. If it's not, then, you know, you can help figure out who those people are. And, you know, maybe we create some position descriptions that would be applicable. Not, you know, not to say that anybody can't just join in and help whenever they can. But if it's going to be an ongoing thing, it would be nice if there's a familiar person or two that are helping to make things go. And I see a lot of that has happened in the past. I know on the radio communication, there's that a pretty regular group. Dan has done a lot of work on that. But you're right, with the 20 hours, it's going to be a challenge, and will necessitate more active involvement, which I hope maybe that gives people opportunities, and we can build some relationships just through that. Dan, do you want me to answer that question, or are you just posing it existentially?
Yes, please answer it.
Okay. Well, I will respectfully disagree. I don't think CERT is on a downhill. And I would look forward to taking this opportunity to, in fact, I hope, reinvigorate some of the CERT engagement that I have seen lacking. Fortunately, Terry distanced CERT from the fire department. Honestly, people didn't want to work with her on CERT, and so there was a very like hands-off kind of thing, which was unfortunate. I think this will give us an opportunity to draw closer if we do it right. Now, I know that's a caveat, but we can, I think, be conscious enough to do it right. We will not see the city council dedicate money to create a full-time CERT coordinator position anytime in the near future. That's out of all hands. Not that I don't want it or that Chief Sartain doesn't want that. It's just a budget reality in Ashland, and that is the way it's going to be moving forward until we are upon better times, if ever. It's just not going to happen. Happy to reach out to other CERT programs. I don't know anybody per se. Well, I knew one person in Jacksonville. I'm happy to reach out to the Illinois Valley. Do any of those programs have a full-time coordinator?
None of those programs have paid coordinators. So I'm optimistic, but from going from our nationally recognized program to a non-paid coordination, the writing's kind of on the wall. will be falling down without, strong leadership from from our sponsoring organization. That's all I'm really saying. Right now, we're in a kind of a difficult time, and we're probably falling down as we speak. So, time is short to keep what we have so far and to move forward. So, I'm optimistic, but history and these other local programs have really shown us that it takes strong support from the sponsoring agency to have a successful program.
I hear you. Well, we are maintaining paid support. I think you said we're not, but we are. Our position is still intact. Perhaps one of the things we also need to look at is leveraging that 20 hours. This is something that we've done on the wildfire side many times over, is leveraging our staff investment to get outside resources. I know, Terry just kind of focused on the Homeland Security grant. Seemed to me that past coordinators looked more broadly. We had a CERT assistant that came out of various grants for a number of years.
Mhm.
Heidi was here. So to me, I look at a 20-hour investment by the city at leverage. Can we find any kind of program that would provide that some additional support through FEMA or Department of Homeland Security or Oregon Emergency Management or whatever that might be? I think we need to start looking a little further than we have in the past to say, how can we leverage that in order to get somebody here? An AmeriCorps student is cool and helps. It doesn't, continuity is an issue when you keep somebody around for more than a year or two. But, if that's what we had, then, hey, maybe that's still good. Having another body to help keep track of things and keep the momentum going is, we'll say no to. The city actually has had an AmeriCorps person helping with climate adaptation the past couple of years. So I know that program is still out there, not what it once was. But just to say, we are perhaps in a vulnerable position, but I'm hoping that we can move forward constructively from that. But ultimately, we are going to need CERT volunteers to step up and do more on the leadership side. So that's in part why we're having this discussion, is how can we do that? What can we set in motion from this meeting in order to take that next step, move towards redoing the strategic plan? Once we get the 20 person on board, really getting them up to with vision and the day-to-day operation piece of it, which they'll need to pick up and run with pretty quick, for sure.
Yeah. I'd like to see a plan soon, even a simple one. It's just and maybe very focused, if we can, because I'm not sure how much time all you all have. I have the same amount of time I had before, and then there's things in terms of keeping CERT going. There's things going on that we'll need to address, which is one is map your neighborhood requests, and I know Steve's been involved in that, and Sue Stendeback mentioned to me that she'd gotten a request about doing an MYN training, and so I just want one of the things we do soon, hopefully, to be to figure out what we're doing there, if anything. I mean, we're not for a while. And also there's a lot of badges sitting in the office, just to mention that. So it's still like people to get their badges and have a
we tracked those down, and everybody who has one here has already been contacted, and they are in process of picking them up.
I haven't been contacted and I don't have one.
The badges that came back to us in an envelope,
Okay.
all of those people who had badges in an envelope, we've sent emails to last week. Why? Maybe was yours just being
I don't know.
Dana's is in the office. I've seen it.
Okay.
And so Scott's.
It might have been here previously because the batch that came was new. So let me, sorry, Dana, let me track those down.
And we're getting off track here. It seems like our next step from CERT is for a few of us to get together and maybe we meet over a beer outside somewhere and just blaze through the strategic plan and update this to the best of our ability. And then take that and it will need to get matched with what AFR comes up with what they want CERT to be doing. Is that the next step?
I'm proposing the next step is actually to form a leadership group that's actually formalized group. It's not that it is the same people who show up every time. A group that would then provide the guidance to update the plan. I don't see just sitting together over beers and updating the plan as the way to go, although I'd love for that to be the case. I think that to really make it a CERT owned plan, we need to have a strategy to reach out to the entire membership of CERT and get their input. I think that can be done digitally. Obviously we can't get 120, much less 600 people together these days. And maybe we never could, but we need to devise a plan to approach this update to the plan in a way that's constructive and inclusive of the membership. I think we would trip and fall if we just say, okay, 10 people take this and redo it. And then everyone else is going, well, no one asked me. So I want to make sure that people have that opportunity to provide input so that leadership group would shepherd that update process with support from staff. I mean, I'm going to be there for that. And whenever the person is hired, they'll be part of it. But I also don't want to just hands waiting for somebody to be hired who then comes on and it's going to take them 6 months to get their feet under, figure out what's happening in CERT. So we can keep the momentum moving ahead. That would be highly. So I guess I could ask, well, how many, if there were a leadership group, what's the ideal size? 12 people, 15 people, 20?
Never more than 12.
Never more than
Thank you,
12.
Barb.
Well, hi, Chris.
Yeah, who is that?
This is Charlie Delgado. How you doing?
Oh, hey, Charlie, how are you?
Good. I'm sorry, my picture's not on the screen for you guys to see, but I'm calling in from my phone.
Great.
And I don't have video. So, but I've been listening the whole time, and I've been participating in all these Zoom meetings. And I just, first of all, appreciate, your energy that you're putting into this and allowing us to chart the course of, what CERT looks like. And I just would like to clarify so that I get a better understanding of what you're looking for here. Are you looking for, anybody who's, say, for example, on this conference call, or CERT membership in general, even for people who are not on this call, to just step up and say, hey, I want to be part of that leadership team? Or are you looking at the people who have been part of the existing leadership team as per our, charter or, our agreement and you know, the qualifications for being part of the leadership team?
Well, in part, I'll throw that question back to you to say, are the people who have been as part of leadership on the activation side, can those be the same people who are going to help do more of the CERT
Right.
mission,
As far as
vision?
the stewardship and guidance
Right.
of the direction you want CERT to go.
Okay, well, we'll just call it care and feeding. How about that? So yeah, I throw that back to you and just say, well, what do you all want? If you, I don't know how many of you are on that activation side in the leadership team.
To clarify, I think I want to participate in this clarification, which is that we've got our level system defines a certain level of participation, not necessarily having to do with activation or not, but participation in mostly putting on the basic training and doing the work of keeping CERT going. And most of the people on this call, let's say the majority of the people on this call are, I would consider to be level 1, the top level. Hopefully that's the top level. I always get which does it go 1 to 3 or 3 to 1? I think it's level 1.
Let's
So yeah, top level. And are qualified. But I agree with the question actually, Charlie, which is like, do we want to restrict the invitation to lead CERT on this working group to those who have put in the time before that and it's, it's people we know too, it's part of it. And I don't want to, I think we're not in a position to exclude a lot of people. So I have trepidation about saying, well, you have to have done this and that, but so I'm not sure what the right answer is there.
Sure. Well, I mean, in some ways, because that group is already built, it would make sense to reach out, and to the extent that many of you are on that top tier, to say, okay, hey, this is a vision that we want to execute soon. Would you be interested? Anybody know how many people are in that top tier of folks offhand?
Well, there's some interpretation that has to be done depending on how you read the guidebook for that. If you give me a second, I think I had a list of like 15 people.
Also, Paul, did the invite for this meeting go out to the entire membership? Because if so, then it's kind of self-selecting group. These are the people that are interested in what's happening with the program.
Yeah.
All right, well, went out to the 160 CERT active.
Okay.
The active mix. Of
Well, some people might be busy. I don't think that we should assume that if they're not on this call at this particular time, that it's because they're not interested in being involved.
If sure, and specifically, Doug Viner has mentioned he wants to support this effort and basically do what we've been talking about on a working group. So yeah.
So if it's 15-ish, that's certainly a good start. And if we polled those folks and just said, hey, here's what we need forward, and confirming or changing the strategic plan, and creating a solid footing for CERT moving forward. How many of you want to be involved in this? And if we get 12 hands, then great, there's our team. That's one way it could be done. I mean, you could also, poll more of the whole active membership, and you might get, 15 people, I don't know, 30 people, 5 people to say. I don't know the membership well enough to know how many people would step up. At least, ideally, I would hope this group could continue to function at least, not just for the strategic plan update, but for a term, maybe you sign up for a 2-year term and say, yeah, I'll be part of this team for the next 2 years. You're not in it for life, but might spend a few extra hours a week on business related to CERT, and the people who have that time and want to make the commitment, that's great, they'll do it, and others can follow along vicariously through notes and meeting recordings, give input when asked. Any other preferences or feedback on how that would be best rolled out?
If it's going to be that formalized, I like the idea of 2 years, a certain amount of time. If it's going to be that formalized, is that even a word, that it'll be this many hours a week, I would need to know how many hours a week that would be before I would be able to commit.
Yeah, sure. I suppose that would be the case for a lot of folks. I would want to know the same, given how busy life is. I could say, yeah, probably like, one meeting a month, normal meeting a month, would probably be a start for, a couple hours. And then doing a strategic plan update is going to take some more time. Not that everybody in that, even in that group, has to be as hands-on with that process, but it would certainly take a core group of folks really moving it forward and helping reach out to other servers, maybe giving input, helping craft a survey that goes out, touching base regularly on what's going on with the we need a planning group to organize a planning group. Yeah, unfortunately, sometimes you get down to that. So that I'm sensing some consensus, at least tacitly, that at least starting off polling that top tier group, saying, please indicate if you would be willing to commit to that. We could come up with a general kind of rough position description, as it were, as to what that position would entail, and then run it up the flagpole and see how it goes. We could do that as soon as next week, have it out, and see who says yes. And if not enough people say yes from that core group, then we can put out to the next level of folks in the membership, whether that's the whole active membership, the 160 people, or if it's just the next tier of folks who spent the time and on their skills, whatever that is, gonna get to the point where we can get the critical mass together. Anything that would not work if we went that direction?
Sounds good.
Getting some yeses, all right.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's do that.
I
A lack
think
of no's is considered a yes.
And actually, a lot of us have been used to spending 2-hour meetings a week, because Terry had scheduled always second and fourth Wednesdays, 2-hour meetings.
To a
So-
month, yeah.
Month, yeah,
So-
okay.
So a lot of us are used to just blocking that 4 hours out, not even counting any other CERT stuff that we've been doing. So I don't think that doesn't seem like an unrealistic expectation, I don't think, for, not that people would have to be there every single meeting, every single time, but just that would be the general thing. That's worked pretty well. And I mean, some of those were trainings, but they don't have to be, is what I'm saying. So this group could And one of them was identified. This one was as a leadership meeting, but it turned out not usually to be a leadership meeting. It was just another meeting. To me, I didn't really see the distinction by, after a while. But that might be because we got into Zoom and the pandemic and all that other stuff. So if one of those is a leadership meeting, that's fine. Maybe the other one isn't, but we've been putting in that much time anyway, just as a kind of a base level of participation.
And back to Dana's point, the third Wednesdays were nominally for socializing when you could have beer. So, that's another meeting that was very important to have.
And that was just kind of a general membership.
No, that was the meeting. He's talking about a meeting after the meeting.
Oh,
They would-
We'd have
they would
a
adjourn.
social, we'd have social things again.
Some people would
Wednesday.
adjourn to another, that was not an official meeting. He was kidding.
Oh, it was a
That's
third
when real,
Wednesday.
although we all know that's when the real business gets done, at the meeting after the meeting. Okay, so if I have questions on how to access and I think I have that membership list that has the tiers of activation, membership, all that. So being able to people won't be
Yeah, I'll help get that. I'll
Okay.
help get that organized for you.
Perfect. I appreciate that, Paul. Thank you. And then we'll come up with a little job description, as it were. Pay is not great, but hopefully the satisfaction level is high. And insert for the money anyway. So we'll come up with a little description of what those leadership people will be responsible for and doing. Both kind of in the immediate near term with strategic planning, and then with a vision for being more on the sustaining CERT and advising staff, and being liaisons on your side to the membership as well. And we'll then see how much of a response we get. And if we do have enough people, then maybe we call it good. And if we don't, then we'll cast the net wider.
What's your definition of enough people, Chris?
Well, I heard, I think it was Barb said maybe 12 is no more than 12. Maybe if we shoot 12, will that work?
There used to be a theory that if you had more than 12 people in a group, that it became unmanageable. I mean, I'm not saying that's true. I'm just saying that was what was handed out decades ago, as like,
The newest theory, Barb, is that you don't want more people than can share a large pizza.
there you go.
Yeah, it partly depends on the
Pizza restaurant you're at.
I think it's the number of people whose thumbnails fit on a screen is what the new definition.
Yeah, I
is.
mean,
So
we
we've got-
were.
I think about 6. It could,
7,
yeah, so
15.
no more than 16.
Yeah, well, there's
Yeah,
also,
that's
I see a span of control issues, right? Then you
Well,
have
yeah, that's only 5 to 7.
forming subcommittees.
That's right. But they've broadened that, right? That was redefined to be like whatever is appropriate. Like they kind of weaseled it.
Yeah, that's too weaselly. I don't know. I kind of like the 5 to 7.
Yeah.
That seemed to feel right.
I think we need mostly worker bees. So
Yeah, we
if we're
need people to
interested
do
in
work.
really focus and get something done. That's what I'm.
If,
And I
if,
suspect
if we
we'll
get
do-
8 people to commit to being here all the time, that would be very effective, I think.
Well,
And I
let's just
suspect
see.
it's gonna be a
Let's
lot of
just,
the people that are here now.
let's just gauge the response initially and see. I hate to turn people away.
Yeah.
We're eager for this. So if it's if it's 8 or 10, I don't think it would matter to say yes to 8 or 10. If it's 18, then we should probably reconsider. Or if it's 3, we should probably keep looking as well. But maybe we'll just maybe the number will just kind of work itself out.
Can I ask a group question? How do you guys feel about do we need more or less broad communication to the CERT members, both the active group and then the rumored 500 member email list that I've never seen? um, do we need to be like getting out updates to people, do you think, or are we okay with just sort of doing what we're doing?
I think
My
people need to
opinion
know.
is that there should be regular, I mean, I don't know what regular would mean, once a month or whatever, something to communicate to the people that are not at the meetings that CERT is still happening and that we're in the planning and development process or whatever. You're a good person to write up, you know, what's going on and you know how to write it. But I just think there should be information continually flowing out, not overwhelming, not to make people say, I don't want these emails, but just regular communication saying, yes, we are still here. We're doing our thing. You know, we're going to hire the city's going to hire a new person to manage us. And, you know, and over that is Chris Chambers, firefighter, and just sort of give people a feeling of that we're still happening, you know. Otherwise, the people that don't go to the meetings all the time, we don't want to lose them as people that are still active in the sense of willing to be called upon. So they just need to know that something's going on. And I think that if they are not attending meetings, they don't know. They don't know what's going on. So I think regular communication.
And I think before Chris's email and request goes out next week, maybe we have an email, just a quick update that CERT's in transition and we're working on it and expect more communication soon.
Sounds really important.
Okay.
I'm happy to help work on that with anybody who
Okay.
wants to jump in. I'm sure I could find the 500 or 600 list. Terry has an access database that I've cracked open a few times already. So if it's the one, I think we can send it more broadly than just the active members one.
Okay. Cool.
Hi, this is Charlie.
Yeah, Charlie.
Yeah, I think that that's a good idea. And I also think that what you're trying to do, Chris, is a good idea in general. And that's, you know, let's make it a two-way street. It's not just about the fire department or us, you know, reaching out to a lot of CERT members who, you know, are not necessarily in touch with what's going on. It's about them also, you know, coming back and saying, hey, yeah, I'm still interested in CERT and I want to be a part of it. And so what you're doing is saying, hey, guys, you know, let's hear what you have to offer and let's step up to the plate, because I think the survival of CERT at this point is going to be about each one of us who really care about CERT and have found it beneficial, meaning especially those who are in this meeting right now, to step up and say, hey, yeah, let's keep CERT going and do whatever I can, you know. And, you know, for that matter, you know, it's up to each one of us to be responsible for our own resiliency and, you know, preparedness and keeping up to date on all the documentation, the handbook, and knowing what we're supposed to do, and ICS lines of responsibility and everything, you know. So it's about having the members step up also, and that's what you're initiating, Chris, and I think that's a good idea. We need to get some response, and maybe some of these people are hard to reach, but we need to find out if they're actually real live living bodies at first, and if they're actually really interested in staying part of CERT and keeping CERT alive, because those two things are not the same thing, but they go hand in hand.
So any email that goes out, because these are the ones to the 500 or whatever, that's not going to go through Nixle. It's going to have to just be an email. And so any email like that where people have not actually recently, you know, subscribed or said, yes, I want to be part of it, they should always have some kind of an really obvious disclaimer thing, kind of line at the end or somewhere in there if you no longer wish to get these emails, you know, unsubscribe or whatever. There should always be an opt-out when it's something that these people haven't, some of them haven't heard from us for years. So we don't want to start bombarding them with emails that try to keep them involved. If they don't want to be involved, you got to give them an out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree.
there's systems for that we could probably use for free even.
Like you said, Chris, this can be electronic. I mean, we can do this digitally to a large extent. I mean, except for people that don't read their emails.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah, it would be nice to whittle that down, and not think that we have 500 people out there waiting in the wings when there's only 5.
Yeah, I mean, when you get down to it, you really need to know who's the core group that's willing to step up to the plate. And what you're offering us is, you know, to tell you what we want. And that's a privileged position. So we all need to, you know, step up and do that. And those who don't are basically telling you that they don't care if there's a CERT program or not.
Well, I think there's also some people, I appreciate that, Charlie, yeah. And I hope that people do heed the call. But I think there's also people who are just happy to be in CERT. They don't want to be in leadership necessarily. You know, they want to kind of be at the base level. They want to help when they can. And I appreciate that those people are out there. And I hope that, and that's probably the majority, probably the vast majority of people are just, you know, those people who have some basic level of training. They want to respond in a true emergency when they can to help their community. Otherwise, they're going to, you know, maintain that basic training level. And otherwise, you know, maybe just be kind of quiet out there. And yeah, we need those people, and we need the people. Maybe there's fewer people, but we need the people who are going to engage more often, and we need the people who want to be leadership. And fortunately, when you've got, you know, several hundred people out there, I think you can get all of those levels. I hope. Seems that's the way that it's kind of sorted itself out in the past. Well, okay, so it seems like we did arrive at some an action plan, as it were. So I will work at least with Paul and anybody else who wants to throw their hat in the ring to email out an email update out to the general membership. That'd be nice if we could do that this week. And then and we'll come up with a poll for those top tier folks about assuming a formal leadership role, or maybe next week, amongst all the other busyness going on. All right, well, at that, maybe we should call it good for this evening. Always very appreciative of your time. I know it means a lot that people are willing to give their personal time for the CERT program. I'm always very, very impressed with everybody who shows up and does all the amazing things that you do to make us safer and bring our community together. So thank you so much. Any other last minute words? All right, well, thank you very much. Have a great evening. We'll, at the very least, we'll reconvene this same meeting, same time next month.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Chris.
All right, take care.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.